And do we have everyone on, Lori?
We have the first two people, first two items on the agenda.
Okey doke. And then iPad 236.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
It's Karen McCoy, citizen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi,
Thanks.
you too.
Letting us know who you are. Okay, then welcome so far for this evening's agenda to everyone. And this is the November 20th, 2024, Dover Conservation Commission hearing. And Lori, if you can read our Zoom permission from the governor, please.
Sure. Following guidance issued by the governor regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely. Individuals wishing to participate may do so by using Zoom video conferencing technology to join the meeting by video, or using a computer or tablet. You may click on the link listed on the agenda to join by phone. You can call the number and enter the meeting ID and the passcode, and the meeting is being recorded.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
So let's see. We've recently taken on the concept of having citizens' comments if there's something that's not on tonight's agenda that they would like us to look into. Is anyone so inclined? Okay, so we're batting 100% so far. So thank you. And first on our item is 7 Rocky Brook Road, a fence for pets, I believe. Janet, why don't you fill us in?
Sure. Let me make sure I'm off mute
And
here.
was there a plan associated with this at all?
Yes, there was an RDA filing with a plan.
And when did we get a copy of that?
I don't know if that was sent out. We got the copy about 3.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
And do you recall, did you send it over to Lori or?
It was sent out. I
Oh,
saw it.
okay.
I just don't know when, but I know it was sent out.
Okay.
I can try and figure it out.
Yeah, I appreciate if somebody could. I'm just looking for it. There we go. I think I got it. Okay, Janet, why don't you fill us in on your review?
Yeah, this is a straightforward RDA. You might recall Larry was before us about a month ago or so, just informally to see what kind of filing this would require. The commission indicated an RDA. So an RDA was submitted. This is a proposal for a 20 by 60 foot fence to keep dogs in the yard. It's a proposed 4-foot chain link fence. And all areas of disturbances within the existing lawn area. The closest to the wetlands is approximately 10 feet from BVW, but it is a sloped area. Again, very straightforward. I recommend approval of the RDA with the proposal as is. And I recommend that it be approved under your grandfather policy, which would allow new disturbance within the 50-foot and a new structure within the 70-foot, since it's already in a disturbed area and there really are no alternative locations for this. I don't feel erosion control is needed due to the minor disturbance. And also we generally require about 5 inches of clearance at the bottom of all fencing within the buffer. However, given the nature of this and the small size of the enclosure and the abutting expansive natural area, I don't think that's required. And I am recommending 8 special conditions. They're pretty standard. But the question for the commission would be, do we want to require signage and permanent bounds? I think perhaps signage might be a good idea. Maybe just one sign of each of our 2 standard signs. I don't think permanent bounds are needed at this point. I think where the lawn area is, it's fairly clearly marked. The other special conditions is that the installation of the fence be done manually by hand only. And no machinery allowed within the 50-foot no disturb setback. No stockpiling of any material within the 100-foot. Any materials and equipment be stored outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And then the last condition is that we are not approving the wetland delineation because we did not get the field data forms.
Okay. Any commissioners have anything to questions or additions?
Tend to agree.
So
I think
we
one
touched-
minor sign is good.
So we touched base on this a while back, and it has followed through to be just as benign as originally presented. So I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy,
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And entertain a motion to issue a negative determination with the special conditions as noted.
So moved.
Excuse me, can we incorporate into that negative determination the grandfather waiver, because this is such a benign issue, rather than voting on it separately?
Okay with me.
Oh,
And
second,
so,
sorry.
oh, no, I didn't.
No,
didn't
no,
know
I
the
was
full-
I was waiting for Tim to make the.
I
full-
was too. I
I
didn't know
did.
the, oh, you did?
Oh, you
Oh,
did?
okay.
Okay, so second,
Okay, thank you. All in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Sarah,
aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we'll do that. The issue of the sign, 1 versus 2, we'll leave up to Janet in the field in consultation with the homeowner. And Larry, any questions?
Whatever we need to do with the sign, we'll do. So if I get instructions on that, that's fine. Thank you. I did talk to the contractor today, just coincidentally, and verified that it is their intention for no power tools of any kind. So this is hand everything. So
Excellent.
so they're on the page there, and even if we were clear to do this now, I imagine it's going to be a couple of weeks before we have to, get the contractor back and set the date and all that. But what do we need to do officially before doing any work?
It's an excellent question. Janet? What would you, given there's no erosion control and so forth?
Right, so you will need to wait until you get your actual permit. So Lori will be sending that out of the office, so you might be in touch with her on the timing on that, but
Okay.
you should wait until you get your permit in hand before you could go ahead and schedule the work, but it could take a couple weeks, a week or two, maybe, to get that out. I don't know.
Okay,
Lori?
and that I think we'd be that long anyway. So that's completely fine. And then the other thing, so I think a 4-foot fence is actually, my father actually wanted a 4-foot fence. My mother actually wanted a 5-foot fence. I think officially we asked for a 5-foot fence, but if you want a 4-foot fence, then we can do that as well. But I think it said 5 on the RDA. So are we allowed to put in a 4 or a 5-foot fence? I guess that would be my question.
You can always do less.
Well, so the RDA, let me just scroll through what, Janet, did you spell it out specifically?
Yes, so the RDA did say a 5 foot, I think that's what I referenced. Did I?
Okay,
Yes, a
Okay.
5 line, yep.
okay, so
Okay.
there you go.
All right.
Do we need to vote
Um,
again? Because I think we voted for a 4-foot fence, but
No,
they should do a 5.
No,
Okay.
no, I think it was a very short motion, which was to include what Janet had recommended. So I think
Okay.
we're good there. And that's, does that clarify things, Larry?
It does. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Great. Okay, thank you. Good luck.
All right.
Okay. Next we have the DPW maintenance order of conditions coming up, and let's see. Kevin, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, hello. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and fill us in on your on the short story is you're looking to extend the order of conditions that currently exists. Is that correct? What you
That-
formally applied for?
Correct. Yeah, our current existing general order of conditions expires in January, so looking for an extension on that.
Okay, and this has been extended, I think, a total of at least 3 times since it was first was it 2015?
Yeah, I would defer to Janet and Lori, but the original one was issued in January of 2016.
Okay, and I don't know if folks had a chance to read Janet's regulatory report, and I assume you did as well,
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, so at issue, normally there would be very little issue because this has worked well all along. Apparently the DEP has been getting a little stricter on this. And the question is whether to issue a short-term extension so that we can more properly review this. And Kevin, why don't you fill us in terms of Janet outlined a series of things that she would be looking for.
Sure.
and
Yeah. So just for like a point of clarity, any blanket of order of conditions with any DPW or highway department going forward would not be allowed. So that's not the case here if we extend the existing one. Janet summarized some of the work we do, but in my time in the town, every project that I do, other than what this is, general maintenance, is a high level project. So the suggestion of putting those locations for the next 3 years and going, I don't believe the commission would approve those because you wouldn't have a design or hydrology to look at on those culvert designs. So the intent is this is strictly for any of the maintenance that our crew has to do, and it wouldn't impact or have any relation to these high level projects, as those would be independently permitted and reviewed by the commission as they've been in the last I guess 4 projects that have been before you, 3 or 4 at this point.
And so can you give us some examples of types of things that this would cover in terms of maintenance items?
Yeah, so it's very prescriptive what is allowed in there. If no one's seen it in there, I mean, it calls out road work, sidewalk work, drainage structures, adjustments of catch basins, manholes, tree work, cutting and pruning, brush cuts. So and then obviously what would require that. So, this has obviously worked this model for the town. I understand going forward with the DEP, if we did issue another order of conditions, this wouldn't be the case. So
what's your understanding that if we were to issue a new order of conditions in the future, what I'm hearing is that they're looking to oversee absolutely everything, so, and have everything enumerated. Can you fill us in on some examples and where the hardships would be on that sort of basis?
I think it's just about service back to the community, right? A lot of the stuff in here is minuscule as far as catch basin, replacements or adjustments of addition of existing infrastructure. So having to go back to the commission to do every single project, and again, you don't really know that until a structure fails. You know, I'm certainly amenable to the limited extension, but I would ask that it be a year versus 5 months. The main driver between that is, you know, there's a lot of blanket through the 310 CMR. What's actually covered is minor activities. If we're paving an existing roadway, that doesn't need to refile. You know, vegetation removal for sightline and vehicle safety. So kind of those day-to-day activities that, you know, that we do through the course of a construction season are already covered. The existing one, again, is a little bit more, I guess you would view it as intrusive, working in a head wall, replacing that or something along those lines. So the reason why I would at least ask for a 1-year extension would to give me the opportunity to actually really identify that stuff. Currently, the town received an SRF grant, and we're working with Ty and Bond to do a townwide inventory of all of our culverts, catch basins, and drainage conveyance system. Now, the culverts is pretty much wrapped up. I don't have the data back, but they are logging everything on GIS. But we're only about 25% of the drainage conveyance system. So the applicability to kind of have, when we do go to reissue this general order, and it would have multiple locations where we have to do kind of point repairs on some of that drainage linkage. So, you know, old corrugated metal pipe, I'm simply not going to have the data I need to do that in 5 months. But in that interim, I certainly can meet with Janet and, you know, the agency reference at DEP, so we can kind of find scope what we need to do. And then when that data becomes available, then it'd be resubmitting with those locations that would be scheduled work, you know, for really that upcoming construction season.
And I guess one of my concerns is not to, for the ongoing normal maintenance, that some of the things that you just outlined. That just seems to be a very granular level to have to incorporate into an order of conditions ahead of time, because some of these things come up, you know, within a season and need to be addressed, as opposed to being planned out 3 years in advance. Would you agree that that's one of the concerns?
Yes.
Okay. Janet, why don't you fill us in on your review of this?
Yeah, so this is fairly new to me, and I think a lot of other conservation commissions. So that's why I recommended meeting with the DEP Wetland Circuit Rider to find out more and maybe to give us examples that other towns have filed on this. So the intent isn't to make it more of a burden, but simply to make sure that where work is being done primarily like in actual wetland areas. So a lot of stream culvert maintenance, you're actually working in a wetland area. The intent is to just make sure the Conservation Commission is aware of that work. Doesn't mean they have to file a separate order of conditions or NOI for all that work, but in kind of a general generic permit, just to have it fleshed out a little bit further. Like,
so fill me in. So if we were to issue, say we reissued something similar to this, but in conversation with DEP, there's some of those things such as culvert repairs and things like that could be incorporated under that, but just be required to be spelled out in greater detail as their construction comes closer. Is that what you're saying?
that's right.
Okay. So it seems like there's a potential happy medium here, but that we don't have all the data at hand to figure out exactly what's necessary. 5 months, I think, given who knows what happens with the winter and things of that sort, may be a little short on that. Commissioners, anybody have any questions or comments on this?
I also generally agree with keeping the extension short, but why 5 months? Does that just put us like at the beginning of the spring? As opposed to 6 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah, there was no real rhyme or reason, but I just thought that might give DPW enough time, you know, to
Okay.
come formal NOI,
So
but
That makes sense. I like the idea of a short one, but maybe a month or two could, you know, make it all easier for everyone.
Given the fact that the highway department at this point is moving much faster towards digitizing everything and inventorying everything. And they're aware of what's coming up for this, for example, as well as other projects. I don't have a problem with a year so that we can we get more examples from surrounding towns. It's worked for us pretty well historically, and I think it's still an evolving thing within DEP as well. So and it doesn't mean that they could not come in and submit prior to that. I just think it gives them, especially in the surveying and the GIS mapping, it gives them the time to have something more complete before they do that. Any other comments?
So John, I just had a couple other comments, and I really haven't had time to sit down and go over this with Kevin, and maybe that's a good do that, but the original order of conditions in section 4, there were about 10 activities that did require notification to the commission, myself, that could receive informal approval, but we at least needed notification. And as long as I've been agent, none of these, we've had special projects like culvert replacements, but I have not received like an informal notification of any of those categories. So maybe, Kevin, maybe we should meet and sit down and go over those just so we understand what triggers informal notification. And then there also are 5 categories of work, including anything requiring cutting of trees in a buffer zone that are supposed to trigger a notice of intent.
Okay. So I think, well, so far our experience since Kevin has become the head of DPW has been very good communication. I think, so why don't we, and Kevin, did you have that in front of you? Were you taking a look at that as Janet read through that?
Yes.
Okay, and so it doesn't seem, it seems like you have broached a few of those, but probably historically over the last 9 years, the DPW has not done a good job of fully communicating things. Our interaction has been that you've offered communication. My concern there is, if we had 2 trees in a wetland that, generally you'd be taking trees down because either hazard or, death of the tree or something of that sort. I don't want everything to rise to a level of an NOI if we have some other way of handling it, because it just seems that it's not a good use of people's time. But I think that we can address that via communication. So I would entertain, unless anyone has a strenuous objection, I would entertain a motion to extend this for 1 year. So that we can get everything else in a row, and that obviously doesn't preclude filing prior to that if everyone has the information they need. Anyone have any comments?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but this sounds like a place where you could look at, say, oh, that's really too much bureaucracy.
Oh, well, I've been trying to.
It could be. It's clearly be getting in the way of actually doing the important work.
And that's kind of what I wanted to try to say without saying it directly as the chair. But then that's my concern, frankly, is that the state at times overreaches because they're not actually involved in towns and in the day-to-day existence of things. And I think they may have this feeling, but that's what this 1 year period of time may give them, DEP, a reality touch, so that we can have things better defined. And then I think as a town, given the communication that has been very positive with DPW, we can also work on that and have a free flow of communication ideas prior to that, and we have a better idea of what may be workable once we go beyond that. So I'll entertain a motion to extend this order conditions for a year.
Sure, move to extend.
Or actually, this is just do we have to close the hearing, or is this an actual hearing?
I don't think so for an extension.
What's that?
I don't think so.
Okay, then let's just go ahead and,
Yeah. Move to issue an extension of the general order of conditions for DPW.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Tim?
Aye,
Oh, okay, so we're extending this for 1 year.
for 1 year, sorry.
Okay, okay. All in favor, Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, and now we have some breathing room to make this a model. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Great. Thank you very much to the commission. Have a good
Okay.
rest of the evening.
You too.
Thank you.
And let's see. So Janet, fill us in on on Chestnut Street, please.
Yeah, I don't see the representatives from Ty and Bond here. It would be good. Oh, is someone here from Ty and Bond?
Nope, not that I see. Did they give you the idea that they would be here?
I thought that there was communication back and forth. I assumed that they would be here, but maybe not.
Well, let's table this until a little later in the meeting and see if they show up.
Okay.
Um,
They did
okay.
get a report, so they do know what my recommendation is.
And so before rather than opening that and going over that, we'll wait and see if they come back or if they come to here. Moving on, with looking at a continuance of the ANRAD for 8185 Tisdale. And the concern there was the location of the and delineation of the vernal pool. That had not been fully done because it was originally done just on the Red Robin property, and we were requesting a more extensive or fuller picture of that vernal pool. We got a plan sent to us that I think was looking at, let's see, elevation 265 as being the delineating line. And I don't know, Deb, we'd spoken and talked about also outlining the 100-foot buffer and the 50 and 70 on that. Did you have a chance to do that?
So the plan that you have, I did talk with Paul McManus yesterday. So there's a discrepancy between the datum that was used for 61 County and the one on the latest plan. So the surveyor is going back and trying to fix that discrepancy and thereby be able to continue the topography of the vernal pool on the same datum. So I think at this point we're asking for a continuance for him to complete that. I did ask him to put in those additional buffer zones for the new delineations. So the plan that you have probably is not the end all of the plans.
Okay, I appreciate that. When you refer to datum, so Paul, just for commissioners, if they hadn't had a chance to review Paul's letter, he basically didn't disagree with most of the delineation of the ANRAD, but he noted that the vernal pool as delineated for Red Robin used 266 as its data line for the vernal pool.
Correct.
And typically that doesn't change on one side or the other. It's usually 266 all the way around. When you mentioned Deb, the datum, are you referring to just the fact that Paul's looking for something that he thinks is a foot higher, or are you looking at there was a discrepancy in the surveying that where 265 may have actually been the old 266 because you had a different surveyor involved?
Yes, I think the latter. From what I got from Paul, he was saying that the datum used for County Street was NGVD 29, and the LiDAR toper that was shown was NAVD 88.
got it.
So the
Mhm.
difference between the two datums varies between 8 to 10 inches.
Mhm.
So that, is a difference that,
Okay, so I think the idea of getting that clarified, and just for commissioners in terms of the weeds here, engineers, sometimes we've had people come in and be off by 100 feet because they used a particular data point and then added or subtracted based on that data point, but it actually wasn't a real elevation. And this happens less frequently now with GPS. But sometimes, as Deb was mentioning, you can use data sets that may have been 100 years old. And then, as she referred to the LiDAR coming down from, satellite review, it's a little bit more accurate. And then when you have the two come together, they don't line up. So I think the idea of getting that
that'll give a more realistic
yeah,
image.
synchronized, yeah. Okay, then if you can send a well, actually, before I ask you this, Janet,
Yes.
you have any-
Yeah, I just had a couple things. The first was usually we receive a narrative report when we get a vernal pool delineation. I suppose you could use the same one you had used for county. But usually we have some basis for the documentation and rationale, even though this has already been certified. This has been certified, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
So when I had talked to Paul, he was saying that we had two choices, either go this way with the surveyor, figuring out the datum and going with the same level, or having me go out and delineate the actual limit of the vernal pool on the other side. So as far as documenting the vernal pool, if we're gonna be determining its size and location using the survey method, then what could I give you for documentation?
yeah, right, and that leads to we're out of the vernal pool season, and so that presents an issue. So, I guess
Well, I mean, I won't be going out there to delineate it and gather documentation
right.
at all.
I guess it
I-
would simply be that you are relying on the data and your site observations from the original vernal pool delineation, something like that.
Correct. Yep.
So
So
I
you
think
just want me to
yeah,
write something up that
to
references
write
that?
write things, something similar that's dealing with how it affects this particular lot, because that Red Robin is a separate filing.
Mm-hmm.
So write something up, even if you're using paragraphs from the previous one, and then make a recommendation, also not a recommendation, a reference to the datum delineation when you get that resolved.
Okay.
And then submit that with the new plan. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
I
Okay.
can do that. Yep.
And
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to have the contours all the way to the vernal pool on the site plan. I'm wondering why they drop off.
I think that's what they're working on. So as far as 61 County, I think that's what they added to the latest plan. As far as what they had from 61 County.
Okay, yeah, the contours stop.
Yeah, what I see on the up, as you're looking at the plan, as it comes down from the newer filing, there's one assumes that it drops significantly just as it did on where you see the other grading. I thought during one of the discussions, it was very densely overgrown.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that had come into play, but I think a few readings would be, now that leaves are off and things of that sort, would be helpful.
Okay. And I do notice that Paul McGovern has joined as well.
Mhm.
So I don't know if he has anything to add.
And just one other follow-up. I mean, I've been out to that vernal pool and have really walked the entire perimeter of it. And the representation of the size on the plan does not reconcile with what I have observed. So, I'm not sure where how the vernal pool perimeter, and it wasn't like a circle like that either. It's quite a irregular shaped vernal pool.
And
Right.
is that further to the rear, to the opposite side from the opposite the wall that went up? That it's more irregular, or is it over to the left where it borders the other lot?
Where it borders the other wall, I mean, it's more elongated.
It just does not look like this, is my recollection.
Right, and they just got that off of, they just continued that 266 contour from the 61 county plan. I think that's how they got that shape. But as we know, there were different datums, so I think that it will be more accurate once they get it on the correct datum.
So will someone be confirming accuracy on the ground of the vernal pool?
So this is Paul McManus's suggestion. And as opposed to me delineating this, this is what he suggested we do.
Is to
As
use the
far as having
266
this,
datum?
yes.
So
So I don't think anyone will be confirming this on the ground as far as I know, because I'm not, haven't been told to delineate it.
Then let's see how that revised datum line lines up with perception, and then we'll take a look at it at that point. And so if you can actually, before I have you ask Lori for a continuance, Paul McGovern, do you have any questions or comments?
Hi guys, sorry, I'm actually out for a walk, so I hope I hope you can hear me okay.
It's a little dark. I can see it's dark on your screen.
I thought I left my video off, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no, we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm listening in there, obviously. What we will do is I will have our surveyor. It's very difficult to get through that area. That's one of the reasons why it's not surveyed, why it wasn't actually surveyed on the ground. I've never actually been around there because I've never been able to get around there. But we will investigate it a little bit more thoroughly and see, confirm, at least get some more measurements on it and see exactly where it's going. One of the other reasons why we didn't do that was because we didn't think it was particularly relevant to where the project is going to be, because it is quite a distance away from it. But we understand we have to do this, so I'll meet my surveyor out there. We'll figure out exactly, and we'll get more accurate measurements on it, and we'll sort out the datum thing as well.
Okay, appreciate that. And are you thinking, as you're looking at the potential project, are you looking at being because of everything degrading and all the other issues there, at being farther away potentially than the previous project was?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't come anywhere close to where our project is. The wetland, the lines that we're looking to get delineated, the wetland lines, they are closer and adjacent to the project. This is further away from that. So I understand it as you guys want more information on it, just to clarify that it won't be relevant to the project.
Exactly. So that's very helpful. Okay, Deb, if you could, thanks, Paul. Deb,
Okay.
if you could just email Lori for continuance, please.
Okay, will do. And
Okay.
Janet, if you're interested, we just extended our blanket permit. So if you ever want to chat for DPW.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a whole notification forms that they fill out and present to us, and so.
Oh, and Deb, I know we spoke last week or early this week, I can't recall, but so you haven't heard from regarding the Verizon issue at the Charles River. You haven't heard anything on your end?
So I think most of the issue was on the Dover side.
So
If I remember, is that correct, Janet?
Do you mean for source? You said Verizon.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eversource. Yeah.
I'm
so,
sorry, I knew what you meant too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, it's on the Dover side, that's right.
Right.
Oh,
Who's Paul? Darn. Okay.
what's that?
I was hoping to get Paul's feedback. We are expecting a partial certificate of compliance request on Red Robin. We have been waiting for about 3 months for this.
So we have been working on this. We've had what we thought the plan was ready a few times. It's gone to Ron Tiberi to go over the stormwater. That is on the plan, and he a couple times has found things that he thought were missing from the plan and asked Paul to have his surveyor go back out to survey in certain there's portions of the wall that weren't on it. So we have been working on it. It's been going back and forth really between Ron and the surveyor. So we do understand that you want that wrapped up, and I think that we're very close.
Could you ask Paul just to send us something in writing on the status and when you expect to get that in? Because it's now an occupied building, and if there are any mitigating issues, we really should take care of those soon.
Right. Yeah, I'll let him know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Let's see, we come to a continued notice of intent for 15 Wilsondale. And we had a number of folks out there for a site visit last week and could visualize what was at play there. There was discussion about what was presented, what neighbors were used to, and what they would like. There were apparently there are ongoing communications since then, and there are potential compromises that were sent in writing back and forth. So I want to outline, well, why don't we start with Janet, you, why don't you fill us in on the status of the NOI to date?
Right, so at our last meeting, the sense was that the commission wanted to go out and walk the site, which was done last Friday. Since that time, we received a letter yesterday from the applicant homeowner. And I don't know if that went to the abutters or not. And since that time, we also have received information that the abutters have a revised recommended proposal, and we're preparing a site plan, which we may see tonight. So I think that's where we are.
Okay, so I guess there are two issues here. One is that we generally will look at, and this is a relatively benign notice of intent. Let's make that clear, for what's being proposed relative to conservation. And it was clarified and appears to have been agreed to by both parties that was that the applicant has the legal right to file an NOI, being one of the help me out, Vinny, the
Owners.
What's that?
Owner. Deemed
Well, she's not an owner of the easement, which is not the same as the owner of the land, but the becomes an owner of an easement. And so DEP has determined, or SJC determined, that they indeed have that right to file. So we have in front of us a relatively benign request here. And then outside of that, but as sort of neighbors, we're also looking at whether we have any role to play in the discussion among neighbors about work that's done on the ground there, regardless of the impact for conservation, depending upon what we determine. So I'm just, Janet, well, I'm open to commissioners as well. Do commissioners have any concerns that they, based on the site visit and review of things, of if somebody came to us with no other parties involved and approached us, does it seem likely that this is something that would be approved?
I apologize. I couldn't make the site visit, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna recuse myself because I don't really have an opinion.
Well, you don't have to recuse, but you just don't have to, you didn't see, you go to the site visit, yeah. So-
I guess recuse is too strong.
Yeah.
a word,
You can
yes.
just say you cannot weigh in on site visit related things. So at issue, it appears that the parties are now at, well, I think my question, Janet, is on something like this. Well, I think we'll have a hearing from both parties, but that our vote would be a vote that is based on the wetland protection ramifications. Is that your feeling of how things would normally proceed? If you can unmute, please.
So the project meets the performance standards except for the need for a waiver. They are proposing the removal of one tree. That's the new disturbance within the 50-foot. And so they've requested a waiver for that. And in evaluating whether or not the commission approves a waiver, the language is that the applicant needs to demonstrate that there is no reasonable alternative to the disturbance in the 50-foot and proposes to take all necessary measures to prevent both short and long-term impacts to the wetland. So I think the real issue is here, are there any reasonable alternatives to the proposed changes being made to the roadway? And that seems to be the point of contention between the abutters and the applicant. Is there some other reasonable compromise with less impact? And it really rests on the impact to vegetation in this situation.
Mm-hmm. And given this is all outside of within the 50-foot buffer, the shaving down of the top of the hill there is well within an upland environment. Is that correct?
It's not in the wetland, but it is some of that is, I believe, in the 70-foot, but there is one tree removal within the 50-foot no disturb.
And which tree is that? This is a live tree?
Yes.
Joyce?
So if I could, the tree that you are discussing is an oak that was at the farthest reaches of our site distance, and in discussions or in Vinnie's communication with the abutters attorney, we have agreed not to take that tree down. That's the tree that Amy, you were talking about at the far end of away from the parking space down towards where the house would be, where the house is. I believe I have a picture of it, if that would.
So is it on the same side as the turnout, or is it across the street from that?
Yeah, it's the same side. If it's all right, if I'm going to share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a picture, but this was taken.
There we go. Okay.
This has got the back here. Is where we're heading this way towards this hand is where the mound is that we're taking. This is around the corner and going down the hill, and this is the tree here that we're going to leave. If I flip screens here, can you still see my?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you see the plan?
Yep. Plan is out.
Okay. So this here, this 20-inch oak, the
Yeah.
one that Janet's talking about in the 50, we are preserving that tree.
Okay.
This was a tree we had asked to remove, and now we're going to preserve that tree.
Okay.
And so I've revised this plan to take that X off of it.
Okey-doke. And was there any revision to the proposed turnout based on conversations on Friday?
So I have taken off. This is the turnout right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 100-foot. The only thing I've taken off the 2 by 2 foot trench on the back side of it, because it really, it was something that you would normally ask for on a driveway, but the majority of the parking spaces out of the 100, and this does not, that trench would not really provide any useful things. It just takes down, it disturbs more area. In addition to that, and talking with Janet, she suggested I bring this to the commission's attention. We had 2 signs here, and in order to try and, one was the no fertilizer and no dumping, those 2 signs. In order to preserve the character of the driveway, we are requesting not to put signage out and just to eliminate the signs there. So there's no signs going down the driveway. It's not likely anybody would be dumping or fertilizing in that area. So, and those are, those are the changes that we have made to the plan.
Can you note on, so there's also a dead and a compromised tree on the other side of the road that you're proposing to remove? Can you
so this is the
those?
dead, this is the compromised tree right here, the one that's hollow in the middle. And this is the dead tree. This is the one we're preserving now. This is one of the ones we're taking down. And this, the pine. So there's now 2, we're taking down 2 live trees in the 100-foot buffer zone. And they are out of the 50.
Okay. So as I'm hearing from different parties, and as was pointed out and referenced in one of the letters somebody sent, that it had been pointed out that the existing stone rubble to the right, which is the genesis of which we don't really know, is that if you took that down, removed all that stone and moved it so that it was further away from the pavement area, basically moved the stone wall over, that you'd be very close to what the existing grade is, both at the roadway and 10 feet in from the roadway. That the grade itself is would be relatively flat there if that was removed, and it would open up the sight line. What I'm hearing is it seems like we're down to one aspect, and somebody can correct me if I've misinterpreted this, where people have been there for a longer period of time, would like to maintain an 18-inch berm there, as opposed to taking that down to the same grade as the roadway, which is in essence possibly at the base of the stone wall. There still could be stones under that. Is that really the gist of what we're as we discuss this back and forth? Is that where we're at this point?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Luke.
Yeah, Luke Legere, McGregor, Legere, and Stevens. I represent the abutting neighbors. I think that's correct. That's one issue. I would say the other issue that we had flagged was just a proposal to shift the turnout area. For those members who were able to attend the site visit, you'll recall there was an existing turnout area closer to Wilsondale than what's proposed. And our suggestion was to just shift the proposed turnout area down further in that direction a little bit, just to pull it out of the buffer zone entirely. So I think those were the 2 big ones. And then I think the other issue, we appreciate the applicant's willingness to spare the 20-inch oak tree. There was a 20-inch ash nearby that oak tree, which also is healthy. We'd really like to see that saved as well. So I think those are the only other couple issues.
And so one of what the site would show is that if the applicant was to scrape down that rise to the same grade as the road, and as we saw out there, there was a very minimum amount of proposed grading on the far side of that, and it turned out that really didn't appear like it would be necessary. There was a natural grading already in place there. If that grading was taken down to the flat section, that was equal to the road, keeping one of the concerns about having the turnout being a little closer to the top of the hill was because that would make it more viable that if you did come across somebody coming the opposite direction, you wouldn't have to back all the way down to the existing cart path that's there. Is that correct? It's
That is, yeah.
okay. And and part of that is that if you were to take it down to the road grade, which seemed to be a natural component of where what was there for stone rubble and the like, that you wouldn't really notice any extension of the turnout because you wouldn't be cutting into anything. There'd be no wall for the turnout. It would just look like another area devoid of a small hill and any vegetation. It would most likely be covered with leaves a good portion of the year and not stand out as a particularly incidental man-made artifact there.
That
so
is our goal, correct, to make it look natural.
Yeah, so and yet at the same time, so on one hand, people who lived there for quite some time would like it the way it is. That's what I heard out on the site visit. And that somebody else has come along and wants to change it because of their concerns, which they have a legal right to come in front of us for. And the question really is, does 18 inches make a difference? And I guess part of it is, I don't know what the current grade is at the top of the wall. Is that, Joyce, do you know if, is that 4 feet above the road or is it 5 feet above the road?
I do not know what the top of the wall is. I know what the ground elevation is, that's all.
Okay.
I do not know what the top of the stones are.
Okay, so and I guess one way of putting it into giving people who have been used to seeing it as it is that when was there a previously existing house at the where the Erlinger's house is? Okay, so we haven't even increased the number of people who use the road. I was wondering, could have increased it by 50%. My sense is it makes sense to have the turnout a little closer so that people who may not be familiar with driving backwards on a very narrow area would be able to turn out because they may not see a car coming the opposite way until they're at that location. It makes sense for that to be something that's relatively flat or within 6 inches of what the roadway is. I don't think it affects the conservation determinants there. And it's something that we would let somebody do as a matter of course in there. I could entertain 6 inches higher, but it really seems like it's just a relatively small area that that's going to fill in with regular organic debris that's alongside the rest of the road, as well as the poison ivy that was pointed out to me. So it just seems we're at this point we've looked at the wetland issues and they're benign, and this just seems to be a very, very small localized situation that I think frankly 4 months after it's done, no one's going to be the wiser that it actually had changed. But I'm open to residents for any comments on that my particular view on that. Kay or Sarah, or does anyone have anything?
I have just one thing. I also agree with Luke that may not have been clear in the plan is when and if the work is done, we would put in leaf mulch so it does look natural. It wouldn't just blow away. So that's something we did agree to. And Luke had also suggested, and I think it's a very good idea in light of what we're talking about, that when the stone wall is reconstructed, it'd be a little further in from the curve as shown on the Grady plan. That makes sense to us too, because putting the stones back in the sight line is not the perfect idea, and I think moving it away makes a lot of sense. We were trying to maintain exactly what was there, but ultimately I think you're correct that once the work is done and that stone wall is put back in a couple of months, it will hopefully look completely natural. That was our goal.
Do we have a, thank you, Ben, do we have a plan that currently submitted that shows the relocation of the wall being farther away than originally proposed?
I think Rick Grady's most recent plan does.
Is that the case, Rick?
Yes, I have a sketch of what we had sent over. I can share if you'd like.
Yeah, could you please?
Sure. So we were looking at basically following the desired sight line with this cyan or blue line here.
Mm-hmm.
Existing stone wall you can see about there. And so the suggested location would be roughly through that pine tree that's being removed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that blue line, there we go. That's the relocated stone wall.
Correct.
Okay, and I think another factor that the site visit was very helpful is that, in essence, this the sightline impediment there is in essence a rubble. It wasn't really a formal wall. It seems to be a place where somebody piled a bunch of stones and created that the block sightline relative to the grade there. Okay, I think you can take us off. You can take that down, Rick.
Sure.
Okay. So has that was that plan submitted as a revised plan for the notice of intent?
No, I haven't shown the, I needed, Janet asked that I discuss the signage and taking off the
Trenches.
stone trench, thank you, drainage trench. I can show the, also show the wall being moved to the limit of the sight line.
Okay, so the wall gets moved to that limit there. One fewer tree comes down, and we're I'm not even sure. Are we looking at was there erosion control shown there?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there, Vinny? Is that so? Is 18 inches the hill that we want to die on, or you know, as I just.
What did you mean by 18 inches?
Well, some of the abutters were voicing a compromise where they rather than cutting it fully down to the road grade, that it would be cut down so it would be into 18 inches above the road grade. And I just elucidated where I think it makes sense to have the turnout a little closer or have it where shown, and then it becomes much easier to do if everything is taken down to what appears to have been the natural grade in the first place. And I'm just trying to get consensus here that abutters were looking for leaving 18 inches there, not cut down, and that would infringe on the turnout, but also only goes halfway towards the concerns about the sight line. And as I noted at the site visit, is still higher than what the natural grade had been originally. So and that there had been discussion among the parties about using leaf duff to you know, to basically cover all this so that this really becomes a barely noticeable situation.
I did add the composted leaf mulch so that it starts to mimic the surrounding dust.
Okay. And have we gotten an email of that plan that shows the
No,
relocated wall?
I wanted to discuss it with you tonight before I submitted it back to the commission.
Okay. So with that plan, once we have that, I'd feel comfortable on voting for that. But rather than having people do things, do we have on a conservation basis, I don't see an issue with those changes to that plan. But as neighbors, I'm giving an opportunity to have people speak and let me know if you know, some of the changes that they've made and trees that are not cut down if we can, can people feel comfortable moving forward on this, given that there'll be leaf stuff, nothing will really be apparent that much has changed there.
Could I just ask a question
Mhm.
of Joyce? You know, obviously all of the neighbors are very interested in completing this process and getting it done in a minimally invasive way. I have a question because she mentioned erosion control a minute ago, although you had said that there wouldn't need to be any behind the turnout that we're
No,
just.
yeah,
No,
so
no,
what,
there's
what I had eliminated was the stone drainage trench. We always put erosion control in the buffer zone, a lot of times simply to mark the limit of work. So there is no chance of a contractor going further than what we want them, where we want them to go. So it's clearly marked in the field what the limit of work is.
My question actually has to do with a diagram that we saw in the latter page, I think the last page of your plan, which showed filter fabric. And filter fabric is, to my knowledge, always made of polyester or polypropylene. And what happens over time is that degrades and becomes microplastics. And in the case of I'm not sure, which type you might normally use, but I was hoping that you were going to say that you could forego the filter fabric in light of the fact that we don't need to prevent any soil from percolating down from what is essentially what I think of as a French drain, a gravel area that the water tends to go downhill through. So would that be possible that we could forego that in light of the fact that microplastics have become an incredible issue, with polypropylene taking a short time, only 20 to 30 years to degrade to microplastics. However, polyester takes between 20 and 200 years, and there are a lot of damaging heavy metals that come out of them as they degrade. And I don't see the purpose in this site, or frankly, personally, any site, to use those filter fabric materials.
So let me just add a point of information, Sarah. Those that certainly for a project like this, but for any project, that filter fabric gets removed. And in this situation, I think it's worth it. And so they're not supposed to degrade there. We generally have a compost sock that is made to degrade, and it's all non-oil-based products. But in this case here, the grade is flat enough. Janet, do you see that a compost sock and a construction fence would be adequate, given that things are pretty flat there? And if you could unmute.
Yeah, I was just looking at the final, the most recent site plan submitted. And the date was 9/13/24. So the proposed infiltration trench is now out of the picture. And that's what contained the material that Sarah was speaking of. And then the erosion control is simply a mulch sock with the orange construction fence in front of it. No silt fence proposed.
Oh, okay. So the orange construction fencing, Sarah, I'm sure you've seen it. It's also green at times. It's very helpful to keep contractors away from things. That it's and yet it also gets rolled up as soon as they're out of there. And I expect something like this would be a matter of days, that it would be there, and it would not be degrading, and it would keep them from going beyond the area that they're supposed to. So there'll be the revised plan well, it sounds like a revision has already taken that fabric fence out of there. Does that answer your concern there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I think as we're looking at given that what the site visit showed us is that there really should be no grade change. And there was and that removing the trench also removes the excavation of that trench, so that again there's less piles of dirt and the like. So it makes it a much even more benign project. Are there any other comments?
John, I just had a question that came up at the site meeting as well. I
Mhm.
don't, it specified what the surface for the proposed turnout would be. Well, we should talk about that. I think gravel.
It will be gravel.
gravel.
Yeah.
So if you could specify that on the site plan, on
Mhm.
the revised site plan, Joyce.
So I think we're looking at revisions on the plan before we can vote. But I wanted to see if what we've discussed here and the way that I had outlined things, if this would allow us to vote on this at our next meeting, if we get the proper paperwork in hand, or does anyone have a a concern that they just can't
Kay
get
has
passed?
her
Hi,
hand
Kay.
up.
John, I thought at first you were saying that you're proposing that they be allowed to grade the berm down to the level of the roadway. And then I thought I heard later you saying something different. And so I'm confused about where you,
So where I'm coming down is it appears that there may have been a stone wall there, and then there was stone rubble put on top of that wall. That even if you grade it down to the grade of the road, there still seems to be part of remnants of the stone wall that would still be in the ground there. My feeling is that to be concerned over 12 to 18 inches of having soil there would impact the functionality of the turnaround given the sight lines involved, and that on a conservation basis, it's taking it down to pretty much the level of the roadway, as appears to be the natural grade. Has no conservation impact whatsoever on that, and allows a more natural turnout there as well. So it doesn't need a stone wall, it doesn't need a stone trench. It becomes something that basically blends in, gets covered with leaves, and you don't really see it. And so my recommendation in reviewing all of those is that it will be more functional, and to bring it down to the grade of the road, or just a shade higher, so that nobody has to go over a berm if they have to pull out. And I think the function there is that really is there at the top of the hill, and that it could be adjusted on the way down, but that it's really for the sight line at the apex of the hill there. So, and what I understood from a letter that I got from Finney was that that neighbors would prefer it be 18 inches higher. Is that correct?
That's what I understood they wanted. We feel it's, what we're proposing is reasonable and safe in a very limited area of work, and overall will make it function and look natural. And as I think we saw at the site visit, and it appeared, when you start to remove the rocks, once we remove those, we're probably gonna be at that level anyways.
Mm-hmm.
On the back side of that rubble wall, it goes off down the hill. So we're kind of removing some of what was put there by man, getting closer to the natural grade. And I think overall will make it safer. And I do appreciate the idea of moving the wall back a little further. That just makes it better and more functional also.
Mm-hmm. And frankly, probably a little bit more attractive.
I agree.
But Kay, did you?
Yes, I guess what I would like to say is that there have not been any problems with accidents on this driveway over the 70 years it's existed in its current state. And I think that I think the Ellingers are proposing something that's more radical than it needs to be, given that there's never been a demonstrated problem on the road. And if we knew there was a problem, then maybe going to this extent would make sense. But I think, you know, there is a turnout already there, very close to the location to which they'd like to move the new turnout. Seems okay to do that, and obviously it's within their right to do that because that's not in anyone's jurisdiction. But to be doing a lot of grading when it's not clear that that's really going to improve on an area that's not really that much of a problem, it troubles me.
So I think the concern that I've read from the Ellingers and also as we've, because this concept that the world has changed in 70 years, and that, you know, what seemed to be presented was that there were concerns that delivery vehicles or just, you know, whether they're cars or trucks were, people were encountering them, and that's not going to change. And so that if we haven't had an accident, you know, in the last 70 years, doesn't mean that we won't have one. I think I hear that, but I also recognize that this is a very benign change that that will indeed give better sight lines. I'll let you know that the first time I ever went down that road was well before this came in front of the board. It was years ago. I was out on a bicycle, and at one point I was looking for a house in the opposite direction, and I was very surprised at how what I didn't see. I didn't, and what I didn't expect. I didn't expect that hill, or I didn't expect the drop after the hill, frankly, and then how it comes back up again. So just as a third party encountering that, as opposed to growing up with that or being familiar with that, I can understand some of the concerns there. But I think this is a on a construction basis, this is a very, very benign change that I really don't think will be that noticeable, as I said, you know, 4 months down the road. So, but at the same time, we can't vote on it tonight because we don't have the final plan in hand. And but I wanted to have everyone voice their concerns and also be able to voice what we'd seen at the site visit. Amy, do you have was there let's see, who else was Amy and me, and was there and Janet, was there anyone else from Concom there for the site visit? I hope I'm not forgetting. So do you have any comments, Amy?
No, I mean, I think I agree with the comments. I mean, I think that once you take the stone pile down, I think you're going to find that the sight lines are so much improved that you're not going to have to be fussing around with doing more earth moving. But, you know, obviously hard to tell until you get those stones out of the way and the 50, 100 years of leaf litter out of the way. And then, you know, just almost just scraping down to get that stuff out of the way is probably going to be plenty hard enough for a turnout. But, you know, if you want to put a little bit more stuff on top, I think that's fine, but I don't, you know, less is more.
Yeah.
But I think,
well, I think the idea
we've made that point.
Yeah, and I think that what I would see is we talked about taking out some of the stuff that could get muddy. and go down to a
Yeah,
base.
yeah, no, you gotta get
Yeah.
down to the hard pack,
Yeah.
but.
And then,
um,
bring it up and it will compact over time with rain and so forth. So
Yeah.
give it a 2-inch, rise or something, and it will come down so that you don't create a gully along there. So Joyce, can you incorporate the things that we've discussed into a plan
And
that is,
Luke is also interested in.
oh, let's see. Oh, there you are. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Amy, as well. Just very briefly, back to the point you were asking about earlier, with our suggestion that you come down essentially to 18 inches or so above the grade of the road. Really, what we were getting at there, I think, is really goes to the points that have just been made about the extent of the stone wall and being really hard to tell how far down it actually goes, right? That's kind of been our point all along, is essentially what we've heard from the commission here. Once the stone wall's gone, it seems as though that may really remove all of the sightline obstructions entirely. And I think our concern and the reason we made that suggestion was that, at least speaking for myself, being out at the site when the leaf litter was being kicked away from the base of the wall, it was still really hard to tell how far down the wall actually went. And so the concern is that once the applicant maybe starts moving those stones, how far down are they going to go?
We have a finished grade on the plan. Look, we do have a finished grade. That's 182, which is equal to the crest of the hill.
So that takes me to my point, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure, from the commission's perspective, that if, whatever final plan is in front of you is really just making crystal clear how far down they could go, how far down the approval allows them to go. And I take the point that's 182 on the plans, and if that's what it's going to remain, so be it. But I just wanted to speak to that point.
Well, I think that may behoove GLM to go out and take a look at exactly how deep that wall goes, so that they're familiar with that, and they can clarify where the grade is going to be. Does that make sense, Joyce?
So we're not looking to take this side down below the edge of the road, and we're not necessarily looking to scrape everything back the edge of the height of the road. And so if the wall goes down another 2 feet below the edge of the road, that's not our intent. Our intent is simply to just to improve the sightline. So I think that, being concerned that we're going to dig out and go, lower than what the contours that we're calling for, that's not the intent at all. So I don't know.
Think,
it would make the situation worse.
Right.
Well, right. And I wasn't, there may be a situation where you still have a bunch of stones there.
It might be.
And you may have to, just fill in between with gravel or whatnot.
Or leaf mulch, or leave what's there.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
It's not our intent to.
And that's not a drivable surface. That's just the sight line.
It's just sightline.
Okay. So I think if you can make the plan revisions that we talked about earlier, and maybe make a notation, clarify the notation for the grade there. And Luke, is there anything else you want to bring to our attention?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, that's all for me, unless Rick or Sarah or Kay had something else. I don't have it.
And I think, Sarah, I think that was very that was an interesting thing to bring up regarding the polyethylene, because even though the theory is that these things get removed upon completion, so, sometimes they don't, and I think it behooves us to make sure that they do. It's not applicable to this particular issue, but I think it's an interesting aspect to make us pay attention to that.
I agree. I think a lot of times we see these projects that kind of got started and never finished, and you see the silt fences falling down in the fields, not in Dover necessarily, but you do see it around, and it is concerning.
Well, I think she's also talking about when we have a trench, when we're doing trenching or whatever, we should just be careful not to use artificial materials in anything that we're doing near the
Well,
wet.
I think Yeah,
think that's
as
just
usual, it's
the
all a
point.
balance because it happens to be very effective at keeping mud away from, escaping and attacking
Oh,
things.
no, but I mean in a permanent basis, like we
Oh,
shouldn't
God,
have,
yeah.
we shouldn't try and line a
Oh, well, with
gravel
fabric,
with fabric.
landscape
Yeah.
fabric. Mm-hmm.
Or if we
Uh,
are, then it has to be a natural fabric, not a
Plastic.
plastic fabric.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point, and it's maybe it creates a new market, and
Yeah.
maybe Sarah will be the CEO of that market. But well, but
I think she's got plenty of jobs.
yeah, but I think it's an interesting. I think as we get more information, it's kind of an unintended consequence, and it's something to be mindful of. And we can look into what alternatives exist beyond burlap and things of that sort. So. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And if we can continue this, somebody can send the request to Lori about continuing this, and we'll get this the revisions in so that we know exactly what is going to be done, what's being proposed, and then we can vote and see whether we approve it. But I think it was very helpful to talk it all through, and I appreciate everyone's input.
Same here.
So
Appreciate all the input from the board and from the neighbors, and good working with you on this, Luke. Hopefully we can get this resolved. Thank you.
okay. Okay.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Okay. Have a good evening,
Have a good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Oh, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody, if I don't see you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you. Okay, then next up is the FY 2026 budget discussion. Lori, why don't you fill us in?
Oh, John, I thought we should take up the Eversource certification.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, so they never did arrive. Okay, go ahead and fill us in.
So as you all know, there was a release of oil, PTC oil, in the Chestnut Street Bridge. Actually, there was a pipeline through the bridge. There was a release. They've been doing monitoring. The emergency phase has ended. They are now doing long-term monitoring work. DEP does require that an emergency certification be issued just for the emergency abatement. So we are beyond that point. And I did mention this to the consultants for Eversource a while back. But they have requested an extension. So I recommend that we approve the emergency certification extension for 60 days, which will then allow them to file an NOI for the continued monitoring work. They may be needing to put in some monitoring wells along the bank of the Charles. So that would be part of their NOI. So I recommend that you approve it for a 60-day extension, but require an NOI application no later than January 22nd, 2025.
That sounds good to me. Any questions from anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to extend the Eversource
Emergency.
cleanup NOI
Emergency
for
certification.
yeah, but
The emergency certification.
for 6 months.
No, 6.
No, 60
60
days.
Sorry, I heard a 6 in there someplace.
Yeah.
A second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Amy,
Hi.
and I'm an aye. Okay. Let's see, does that cover main agenda items? And then we go over to commission work?
Yep.
Okay. And Karen McCoy, I didn't know if were you here for anything in particular, or you're just sitting in because you're thinking of volunteering? Oh no, you're muted. I
Please.
can't hear you.
Yeah, so Karen contacted me a couple of weeks ago about interest in the commission.
Oh,
Because
okay.
we were looking for a new member.
I'm just
Mhm, mhm.
observing.
Suggested that she might want to look in on a couple meetings before she made a
A
decision.
wise choice. So the,
Thanks, Amy.
good, but well, welcome, and
Thank you.
I hope we're acquitting ourselves well. Okay, no, it's just sometimes we find people are on who might have been expecting something to be covered.
No.
I just wanted to make sure. So
Thank you.
welcome. Okay, so next up we have the year's turnover quickly. We have the 2026 budget is due in December. Lori, you we're looking at getting something so that a designation who can sign for that submission. Is that correct?
Yes, I just included last year's budget for people to look at and just wanted to request a vote that the commission could designate the chair to sign, which they've had to do in the past few years because we run out of time. We don't have meetings before it's due. We have a meeting on December 4th. So hopefully we would be able to look at that, you know, the entire commission could look at that. I thought we were level funding a budget, but I was a little confused about the email. Are we looking to add money in support of those items or just was Janet looking to just voice support? I was unsure.
Okay. Janet, why don't you tell us?
I received an email, John and I and Amy received an email yesterday from Carol Lisbon. I sent that out to everyone yesterday with two specific budgetary items that that planning board is requesting the Board of Selectmen include in their budget because it will apply to and assist multiple budgets, including the Concom. The first is something that we've been talking about for probably 7 years, which is moving to an online permitting process. It'd be very efficient. It would just be beneficial. It's not expensive. We're probably talking $40,000, but it's been kicked down the road. In our memo to the selectmen about their priorities, we highlighted this as a priority. We discussed that at a meeting. And so Carol's concerned it's just going to keep getting kicked down the road. So she is, the planning is putting this as a, what did she call it? A recommendation within our budget submission, just to reconfirm how important this would be and to urge the selectmen to keep it in their operating budget request for this year. Likewise, also money to upgrade our IT and GIS system, which is basically non-existent. This is something I've been trying to work on. When we approve wetland delineations, most other towns then incorporate that into their GIS system. So we capture that data and the elevation points of the wetland delineation. We don't do that. Our GIS system is just based on the state, which is highly not accurate, very not accurate. So those are the two things, and she just is stressing, she's asking the Board of Health to do the same thing, the building inspector and the assessor. So I think the thought is if we all voice how important this is, and it won't be in our budget, it's a shared expense under the Board of Selectmen. That's a good idea.
Okay. So who would like to write that letter?
I can add that narrative.
Okay, can you thank you, and do two separate ones, please?
Yep.
And it's interesting, the evolution over time. So Janet, the GIS mapping, did that come from Carol, or where do you know what the I know it's been percolating, but do you know, is she the person behind really pushing that, or are there multiple people?
I would say that's something that's come up in the land use inspectors meetings for some time. We lost our IT person about 4 years ago, and only been using consultants since then. And they are, well, let's just say it'd be good to have a dedicated IT person to really help us, so.
What a concept.
But,
But no, I think because the evolution over the decades has been, by doing something like that, then we formally have our trails marked. And
Yeah.
as Tim is aware, historically, there are major portions of the population that didn't want our trails publicized anywhere. So I
Well,
think we're,
they are.
yeah, well, then all trails and
Now we
any
can
other,
actually we might actually be able to control them if we
right.
mark them. It's actually the GIS system is, and the mapping is, probably the biggest obstacle that I've run into in getting the open space recreation plan update finished. Because I've gone down about at least 5 dead ends to getting my maps done, because I have a PC. I don't have a PC.
Yeah.
So otherwise I'd buy my own ArcSys license and do it myself, but
Oh, and you need that to, you know, it doesn't work on a
it
Mac,
only
does
works on a PC, although I believe they might have an online version now, but frankly, I don't have time to learn ArcSys now. So
Exactly. No, I think so. Yeah, I think this is great that we have multiple boards on board with this. So we're absolutely, we're behind it on both of them. Let's see oh, so we should have a vote for designating the chair to have the ability to sign.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm good for that. I actually had some ideas on the budget this year, so we might want to. We could talk about that next time too. I'm fine with the signing, but we were talking, Jan and I had the idea for land management. Maybe we should combine those 2 line items because we treat them as the same thing.
Which line
Trails
items are
and
those?
trails and land management, and
Do we
just
have
treat
a
it as the
trail?
30,000.
We have a trails budget? Well, just our
Yeah.
regular.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was another question I have is, should we request level funding, or should we request $5,000 more, or are we going to spend everything that we had this year?
Well, we're working on figuring out spending everything we have this year, but also I know everyone's been interested in doing Wildwoods as the next land management plan, which I think is going to be bigger than Springdale.
Oh,
And so Springdale is
200
7,000.
acres.
It's gonna be bigger.
Yeah, and if we want to do Wildwoods, which I think we should because it's like the central piece, I think we need more money than 5,000, which is what land management is right now. And if we eat into trails, then we eat into maintenance or other trail marking we want to do. So I think we should increase more, we should ask for more. I don't want to insist on it if everyone feels strongly against it.
no.
It seems like there's some possible overlap that if we were to, based on Carol Lisbon and in other boards, get the GIS situation in hand, that would go a long way towards that. However, we could be waiting for years on that.
To do the land management plan, GIS is a little piece of it. There's a lot of other
Well, and I also wonder on the land
looking
management.
around. I mean, dealing with a 200-acre piece of land to try and understand the flora and fauna is a lot different than looking at 23 acres of fields.
Right.
Well, I think, and also but it might be 23, it might be 10 times the size of Springdale, but it's a pretty uniform ecosystem, you know, in terms of woodlands, trails, and wetlands. We're not looking at,
Bit more mixed.
do we have meadows in there for bird habitat or?
No, but we do have a lot of different, I mean, you have wetlands, you have vernal pools, you have beach groves, you have hemlocks. I mean, you have a lot of different terrains in there. You know, you've got some pretty spectacular erratics and some other stuff in there.
What's an erratic?
rock that got
Yeah.
dropped by the glacier.
Oh,
Okay.
the glacier, okay.
Rocks that
Mhm.
got dropped by the, exactly. I know exactly where it is, Amy.
Mhm.
They're super cool. They just sort of are randomly there, and I love them. And you know,
Mhm.
Rick, Greg, and I, when we're
So-
walking through the woods, always stop and take the erratic photo.
It's like,
Mhm.
where did this come from?
Yeah.
Like
So
crazy.
the,
So,
yeah, so
I mean,
so
I
the reason I brought that up then is whether we want to wait for things or if we want to just put something together where we propose X amount of dollars extra. I mean, not significant, but we've been level funded for a considerable amount for that sort of stuff. And yet we now have things we can show. We have open fields that we opened up, and now it's time to move on to the next. So the concept of requesting an additional $5,000 to $10,000, I'm just throwing it out there, whether it's something that we.
John, I think, why don't we go for it and see what happens?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean,
And that would, if Anna and Amy maybe can put a little something together in
Yeah.
terms of, a quick narrative of what we would be using that for. We can have that for review at the next meeting. That
Yeah.
would be great. Okay, so let's finally vote on my ability. Lori, do you have something to say?
Did you say how much more were you thinking?
Well, we would determine that
Well,
at the.
Anna's gonna look at how much it would cost us to do a land
I will.
management plan for
Okay.
Wildwoods.
So it would probably be somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000. That may not be enough for that, but it would give us, at least it would get the idea of giving us additional budget money because we're proactively doing the things that we're funding all these years.
And I just wonder if, Anna, if you could copy me on whatever you come up with prior to the meeting.
Yes.
So
Oh,
that I can have the figures ready if possible.
Yeah.
And then I'm just looking for that vote on the signature.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
Oh, yes.
Okay, move to authorize the chair to sign for the commission, sign the budget for the commission.
For 2026.
Yes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Anna,
Hi.
Sarah,
Aye.
Amy?
Hi.
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
Janet, did you have
And
a
Janet,
question?
you had a question, Janet?
So with regard to getting the minute backlog taken care of, I'm wondering going forward if we needed to budget, because I don't think we have a budget for this person who's going to be typing them up. And so we have about 26 sets of minutes that are backlogged.
Mm-hmm.
That's a considerable amount of time and effort that we're going to have to pay someone to do.
So did I see something in there Laura, did you get the first transcribed minutes from somebody?
I did, but I don't have them ready for tonight, and that's why they weren't sent out to you, because I wanted to just go through them and review them and,
And did you get an idea of how long that took that person?
Yes, I did. That was one set of minutes. It took 12 hours.
Ow.
Now, is there a chance for
That's
improvement?
a lot of hours.
Well, it is, but I have to check back and see if that meeting was one of our 4-hour meetings.
Or longer. It could have been one of the ones that went to midnight.
And just as
Don't
another
let Karen,
point.
Karen, you don't want Karen to hear that.
I know,
Um,
Karen, don't pay. Just so you know, Karen, Amy recruited me and she said, the meetings never last longer than 9.
They
But we
didn't
did have
used to.
we did have a contentious subdivision issue that ate into the evening for a period of time.
For a month, a year.
For a year, yeah. Okay, so why don't I
I just wanted to say one more thing. She's doing minutes for the selectmen too, and Mona's have been taking about 7 hours.
Really?
It
So
takes a
still-
long time. It really does. And
And yet-
especially ours now, they're kind of morphing into more towards transcript than summary sometimes.
Yeah, and we're
Can
not
we
allowed
pare
to
it
use it.
down? Like,
We're not allowed to use AI. Is that what or the town management said they don't?
Last I asked, they didn't think AI was ready for the minutes.
Well,
I'm not saying that's not gonna happen at some
Mhm.
point, you
Mhm.
know, it probably should, but
Minutes are
And do you
minutes.
know,
I mean, it's
do you
not-
know what her hourly rate is?
30.
Oh, okay. So,
why don't we just get a transcript? I mean, it's a lot less money than, well,
Because then that's the record, that gets filed as the record, and even if you look at, if you watch our video, there's a narrative version typed up next to it that you can read, and it's very inaccurate. Someone would still have to review those notes and refine those notes, and that would take a few hours. So, you know.
well, you know, it makes it say we had a dedicated secretary who was at the meetings, took minutes, and then had to process those minutes and create them. They would be doing at least 7 or 8 hours anyway.
Yes.
And frankly, for $300 per meeting times 28, yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I think that's a reason enough to look for some additional money.
Well, the plan that we had discussed to get started on this was to use the WPA fund
Right.
money.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted to add something in as a salary line item going forward, you could do it that
Is it
way.
a salary line or would it be a budget? She's working as an independent contractor?
She's working as a consultant, but she's getting paid through the selectman's office under their salary.
Okay.
Now, not for conservation, she's not, because there isn't money in there, it's just me.
So is that money
Wanted to
currently,
change that
is that money currently coming out of the selectman's office for her?
for Mona's, not from, not.
Oh, well, no, but no, I meant, so
I'm just
so,
comparing, you
oh,
know.
right, but I'm just looking, so we will have to take money from our budget to cover her costs. For
From
example,
the wetlands protection part of the budget,
Right.
there's a little bit extra that Carl Valente allowed for, maybe about $1,300 under salary. It's under like an overtime line item, and that was if for some reason I had to do, extra hours. So
And
possibly I could use that money too.
And the WPA budget that you had sent that to us a few within the last month or so. Do you recall? Is that like $7,000 balance or?
I would have to check. I truly
Let's
don't
see if
know.
let's take a look at that, and that way if we feel it's prudent to ask for some money for that, or if we can cover at least a year worth of that via WPA, we can. If we have those numbers at the next meeting, then we can make that decision.
Well, I can send those numbers out before the next meeting, because we really only have the next meeting before this is due.
Yeah, so if you could
If
do that
someone
again,
wants
please.
to write a narrative explaining that we need more for that reason, they could do that.
Okay.
But they definitely need it in a narrative form.
Okay. Then, yeah, it shouldn't be that much of a discussion at the next meeting. We'll see the WPA numbers, figure out what her run rate is, and see if we need to add something into the budget for that. Okay.
Janet has her hand up.
Oh, Janet?
I just wanted to mention that I was at a meeting, the Housing Task Force meeting today. Too, and as the meeting was started, Chris Costello usually takes the notes for those meetings. And something came up on the screen and it read, "This meeting is being transcribed for AI companion." So, and I'll follow up with him because I mentioned briefly.
That's the Google.
That's the one we want.
The Zoom,
Yeah,
the Zoom
so
thing.
he's
Yeah.
using that as the tool to at least start the notes for meetings, Board of Selectmen meetings, so.
Well, I think that's what Lori was saying, that when you actually review it, especially if you had a third party, that it's not the verbatim transcript is not that accurate, or is this a different, is this a
I
different
think
tool?
it's different.
Yeah, they're
Well,
all.
let's
but
let's
I,
find out. I think one of the things, Janet, is as we're talking about budget and so forth, do you, prior to the next meeting, can you take a look at give us a ballpark figure? You do a lot of work working with additional within additional departments of the town that then comes out of our budget. And can you give us an idea of on a monthly basis or or even an annual basis how much of that is? Because it may behoove us to take that into account when we if we and request additional funding for that.
I can, that is a bit erratic, like the stormwater regs, that won't
Yeah.
happen. But that was significant, so I can do that. I don't know if I'll have time to go back a whole year, but I can come up with something, yeah.
It just gives us an idea, but I mean, if it's a matter of if it nets out actually being, a few $1,000s, that's one thing. But if it came out to be $8,000 or $10,000, that's a different thing. And it is, there's no question that it's helpful for you to work with the town on all those things. But part of it is whether it should come out of our, the level funding that we've been doing for a number of years now. So, so yeah, that would be helpful.
I will, so I'll come up with an estimate on that, but I will say that working on the housing task force and also the stormwater regs is in the commission's best interest to make sure that
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
other, folks are doing, we're both protecting our resources, but also that we're kept up to date on what's happening, so, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think it may be it has been consistent for a few years now, and it is behoove us, but it also, since we have to pay for it, it may behoove us to ask to get the funds for that. So since it looks like it will be an ongoing thing as the town moves into the 21st century. So it'd be good to have the number.
So
Thanks.
I'm just telling you as the time moderator, it is 9:30.
Yep, thank you.
Just
So
to,
I think
not to scare Karen. And
yeah,
then
we're at the point now. So now we're looking at land management updates, and then we'll be finishing up with Janet's report.
Yeah, land management. So we tried doing 2 30-minute meetings instead of 1 hour meeting this month, and it was a little chaotic. So I'm not sure we'll do that again. But in the process of all this, we managed to get out to Wildwoods and hang some trail markers. So right across from Snows Hill Lane Road, whatever it is, there's a single entrance to the Wildwood Blue Trail, and we hung as many trail markers as it takes 4 people to walk for 2 hours, and plan on doing more of that. It was really fun and worked out. So if you are driving by, you'll never see it going on center, but it is right there next to the road how to enter. So we'll keep doing blue. We divvied up some spots where we recommend hikers walk versus equestrians, particularly where there's steep rock. So see how that works. But yeah, that happened.
It's awesome.
And yeah, I'm super excited. And we had one volunteer who saw the newsletter. I was impressed. I did a terrible job publicizing this, but Ellen Weinberg found us and helped out. And it was awesome to see her.
Well, and Ellen she's become a member of the Norfolk Hunt Club and is one of our major road crossers. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Great.
That's awesome.
Anything else? Or does that pretty much give us?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Good. Excellent. Thank you very much. That's it. That's exciting. Let's see. And then let's see, Janet, why don't you update us on things?
Actually, there was an agenda item, the Pine Street conservation restriction. I think Amy wanted to discuss.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
That's part of the update. Yeah.
So couple of years ago, Sarah Stewart sent me the Pine Street CR to mark up. I marked it up and passed it back to her, and the attorneys basically said, why don't you pass it through the Concom and make sure that we have everybody's comments before we make any changes. So you have the CR in Word with my comments in there. Just make sure you hit review changes on so that people can see.
Oh,
what
so
you
this is
are
something
doing.
you sent out?
So this is for the church lot. Remember,
Mhm.
we gave them money for in exchange for a
Right.
CR. So we're
Mhm.
just trying to get it actually done.
Mhm.
Not that we're particularly worried that the LCT will be doing anything with it.
Mhm.
Can guarantee you now that it won't happen. But this was, this whole process was started before I even joined as a trustee. So I think my comments are okay because I made them when I was completely unaligned, other than being a donor. So
Mhm.
I won't ultimately vote on the CR when it comes before us, but I'm happy to
And
help shepherd it through.
and is there a time frame that you see this happening, or?
Well, the sooner we get comments back to her, the sooner she can get them
Mhm. Okay.
through the lawyer. Once it gets to the state, it's probably going to take 6 months to get it
20
approved.
years.
Yeah, right.
They're so backed up, and they have this cute little CR for Hale that they're trying to digest right now.
Okay,
So
so
that
then
might
so we'll see if we can if folks can review this before the end of the year.
or
Would be
even
helpful.
before that, if that's possible, because then, I mean, it shouldn't, it's not super long, it's not super complicated. It basically says, nobody can do anything except for hike and hold church services and scout meetings. Well,
Okay.
actually, I think the scout cabin is on a different DLCT piece.
Got it.
But the Dover Church is still going to have the right to hold their outdoor services in their cute little chapel, outdoor chapel there that Jerry Arnold built out of logs.
Okay, well, if people,
Which is becoming forest again.
Lori, do we have we have 2 meetings in December?
We do have 2
Okay.
meetings in December.
I was thinking that we only had 1, so okay, then we'll please review this, and we can touch base on at the next meeting. But if people haven't had a chance, we'll finish it up at the following.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions on it, of course. But in the
great.
meantime, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, Janet, we on to your report, or is there anything else?
No, I think that's it. Yep.
Good. Okay.
A couple of items. At our last meeting, we have 2 ongoing, several ongoing Miller Hill enforcement order. We are getting weekly updates on that. And that's going out to everyone from the Crawford, the consultants. 31 Springdale, we did set a deadline the first week in January for their revised restoration plan. So we just need to keep moving along. But 29 Saddle Ridge, we discussed, but we did not set a firm deadline for submittal of a restoration plan and information. And my note showed John was going to work with Lori to reach out to the homeowner, but I'm not sure. I just think we need to have a firm deadline for at least giving them a nudge to do this work, because this enforcement, this has been 1.5 years, and we have nothing to show for it virtually in terms of, addressing the violations there.
I am going to put something in my calendar for next week, so I talked to Lori about this.
It seems to me that So we met with him a month ago. So giving him another month, and again, it's not the full restoration plan. What they need to do is have the resource areas delineated and then come back to us. And just talk about that and talk about what he wants to do out there. And then submit a formal restoration plan. So I don't think we're that far off, and I think we can come up with something that he's comfortable with and we're comfortable with, but we just need to, keep this moving along.
No, I think it's a good point. So I will indeed talk to Lori early in the week, and I agree with you. There's not, now that we have agreement on his part, there's not that much to be done, but we do need it done. Okay.
Just an update on 31 Springdale, since one of the things that you told them to do was to reach out to DLCT to discuss their encroachment. And since they didn't do that, I had Stephen send them a email today. So
Oh, excellent. I was just gonna ask for that.
so it's the communication's going the opposite direction than it was supposed to go, but it's gone,
it's
and we'll see.
Good.
He said it's a big, he walked, Stephen
It's around,
walked it, and he said
it's around
big.
3,000 square feet, I think, isn't it?
He said it was a lot. There was probably trees cut and a lot of fill and riprap.
Really interesting. Okay, well, it sounds like have we had
So
a site visit?
I don't know. I
have we
mean,
had a-
Paul walked
have
it
we-
with.
Yeah, have we have we had a site
Llewellyn.
visit there?
We haven't, but
I don't recall riprap being a
Janet?
component there based.
Yeah, so actually the first site visit with Jim was Jim and myself to
Yeah.
document violations. And then the last site meeting about 3 weeks ago was Paul, myself, Mitch from Goddard, and then Will Mitchell, the owner. It was clear.
And did you discuss things on the far left of the house?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And Paul actually went out and they set coordinates with the amount of fill and disturbance.
Oh, okay.
And they're supposed to come back with a revised restoration plan the first week in January.
Okay. Let's see what they show accurately, but I think a letter coming from Stephen is going to possibly get him to move a little bit more readily there too. So I appreciate that.
But I think, the a good model of how to cooperate where we have a third party landowner is Miller Hill. So I think the LCT will need to also agree and be comfortable with the restoration, but this is certainly a different scale. So
right.
That's good.
Yeah. So when it's coming on, I'll probably suggest, I mean, Stephen will want to be on, and I'll just let him speak for us for DLCT.
Absolutely. Okay, Janet, 146 Claybrook.
Yes, so they have a number of annual reports they have to submit to them. One is a water quality report for the vernal pool and the wetlands. We got like 30 pages of data, but no conclusion or summary. So that wasn't really helpful, but I will ask for that.
Is there still water in that depression? Do you know, after this drought?
Yes, there's still
Wow.
water.
Wow.
Do we even know if the house is still being built? Like, it's weird. Like, there's like is the house completed? Like, do we know?
Yeah, the house is completed. They're still doing all sorts of things. They came to us for a minor modification. They're doing landscaping and hardscaping, and they're putting in a hot tub, but the house is done. But
Is it occupied?
Yes, it's occupied.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
How can that the vernal pool have water in it when it didn't have water in it when we permitted when Scott told us it wasn't a vernal pool?
I think there was always something in it.
No, it was just black leaves, and oh no, it's not a vernal pool.
No, there were like two sections of it, and the front section seemed to have water in it, but
Oh,
who knows? It's, I
whatever.
know that first time the stream
Oh.
behind me is mucky. It's the first time I've not seen running water in 25 years or
Yeah.
something.
Fisher Brook is almost, or a couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Fisher Brook was almost not running
So,
at Chase.
And
okay,
water table's very high here, so that has allowed that area to retain water. So the first report was the water quality analysis. I'll follow up on that. Then there was a vernal pool survey, which indicated, I think the drought has had an impact on perhaps its ability to function. They did not find any wood frog egg masses this year, but they also were out there in the beginning of May to do their survey, which was a little late.
That's
Yeah.
much too late.
yeah.
I was gonna say, it's usually March when they do that, like.
We did the vernal pool walk the first few days of April, and
Yeah.
and we were seeing tadpoles and already.
It's usually the end of March, beginning of April.
So I will.
Well, why don't we, this time around, we'll make it
There
clear
was
that that's what we
there was no
expected.
drought this last May. I
Right,
can
no.
guarantee that.
Okay,
And then,
continuing.
the third document was the wetland replication, because they had to fill wetland to put in their driveway. And then, as you remember, on the far right side of the property, had been a road. So they were doing restoration and invasive removal. And so you saw that report with photos. So even in spite of the drought, it looks like things are coming back quite well. But they still have, I believe they still have 2 years of monitoring they owe us, so. But anyways, so it's, at least we have these documents and we can keep some track of what's happening out there.
Okay,
And then the stormwater management regs they're in final form, I believe, but I have to confirm that, so I'm just gonna defer on that to our next meeting. And then I sent out my proposed article on drought conditions and asking people to send us pictures. And the deadline on that is, if people have any comments, if you can get those to me by this coming Tuesday.
okay,
And that's it for me.
great. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from anyone? Then, hearing no objections, this evening's meeting is adjourned. Okay, thanks everyone for your time.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
A good Thanksgiving.
Yes, likewise,
Yes.
everyone.
Thanksgiving, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.